years, is dedicated to being your source for delivering thoughtful, factual news. The Florida Star is available at over 200 outlets in Florida and Georgia, or at floridastar.com. The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
We ask Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan about that and take your calls and questions on our monthly Ask the Mayor segment. Then, exploring themes from plastics pollution to lost cause mythology, we talk to Jacksonville artist Robert Dewitt Adams about his new exhibit. And an ancient city performer celebrates independence by fusing French songs and Argentine rhythms. Join the conversation. Give us a call at 904-549-2937 or email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. It's all ahead this hour after the day's news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Kristen Wright. Vigils across Texas are honoring the lives of those who died in catastrophic flooding. In Houston last night, campers from an all-girls Christian summer camp that lost 27 children and counselors remembered their friends.
Tell me why the sky's so blue. Tell me can't mistake just why we love you.
The death toll has surpassed 100 in Central Texas, and there are people still missing. Deborah Garza attended a vigil in San Antonio.
My heart breaks for the families. Sorry.
To be honest, we looked at it and we were like, I was like, what luxury?
I mean, I think if it was my grandkids, that's what I think about. I don't know if I would make it.
It is day 5 since torrential rain swelled the Guadalupe River. The water rose 26 feet in 45 minutes. Thousands of migrants from Honduras and Nicaragua face possible deportation. NPR's Juliana Kim reports they're the latest migrants to lose temporary protected status.
About 4,000 people from Nicaragua and 72,000 people from Honduras had been covered by Temporary Protected Status, or TPS. The program allows people from countries hit by war or disaster to live and work legally in the U.S. Honduras and Nicaragua were granted TPS in 1999 following Hurricane Mitch. On Monday, the Department of Homeland Security said the two countries have recovered enough for TPS recipients to return. The protections are slated to end in September. The Trump administration has sought to end TPS for thousands of migrants, including those from Afghanistan, Cameroon, Nepal, Haiti, and Venezuela. Juliana Kim, NPR News.
The Trump administration is moving ahead with plans to reverse a Biden-era ban on new coal leasing in the Powder River Basin of Wyoming and Montana. NPR's Kirk Siegler reports conservationists are calling the move misguided.
The Biden administration had cited slagging demand for coal and the climate crisis when it moved to halt any new leasing in the Powder River Basin, which now accounts for more than 2/3 of the nation's entire coal production. Montana and Wyoming sued to stop that. Now the Trump White House, per an executive order to, quote, unleash American energy, is moving to reopen the basin to new development. Federal land managers have begun a short public comment period with a final decision expected later this summer. The move is being cheered in Wyoming, the nation's largest coal producer, but it is yet unclear whether demand for coal still is high enough that companies will be eager to bid for new leases or expand production there. Kirk Siegler, NPR News, Boise.
This is NPR.
You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Good morning. I'm Stephen Ponson. It's now 9:04. Atlantic Beach is asking residents to help pitch in during overnight maintenance at the city's wastewater treatment plant tonight. To assist, residents are asked to end all water-related activities, including laundry, showering, and toilet use by 11 p.m. The maintenance is expected to wrap up overnight, allowing normal water usage to resume by tomorrow morning. One of the bills Governor Ron DeSantis vetoed from this legislative session would have commissioned a statewide study on the impact of AI and robotics on Florida's workforce and economy. Tristan Wood reports the bill's sponsor says he's planning on continuing to fight for the study next year.
In his veto letter for House Bill 823, DeSantis wrote that such a workforce study would be obsolete by the time it's published because tech is changing rapidly. The bill's sponsor, Representative Leonard Spencer of Winter Park, doesn't see it that way.
If we don't stop to take stock of where we are and how this disruption due to AI and automation and manufacturing is happening, we can't start to craft smart policy.
The bill had bipartisan co-sponsors and only received one no vote in the legislature. The veto came a day after the Tallahassee-based free market think tank, the James Madison Institute, released a report on AI that claims regulation could cost the state $38 billion annually in economic activity. It got that figure by assuming workers and firms would be less productive with AI regulation. I'm Tristan Wood.
Showers and storms this afternoon. Highs reach the mid to upper 90s.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Indeed, committed to giving job listings increased visibility with relevant candidates through its sponsored jobs feature. Learn more at Indeed.com/NPR. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning. I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, a new fire chief takes the helm and a bitter veto battle over immigration ends. We'll talk about that and take your calls and questions in our monthly Ask the Mayor segment. Later in the program, he was once bullied by the author of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series. We ask the artist and Jacksonville resident about the influences and life lessons that inform his creative work. But first, here to discuss city news and answer your questions, we're joined as we are each month by Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan. If you have comments or questions, give us a call at 904-549-2937 or email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. Good morning, Mrs. Mayor.
Good morning. Always good to be with you, Ann.
It's great to have you back. Nice to see you. I understand you're on the good side of a vacation that you were recently in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, I asked him to decide, where he wanted. I said, put a dart anywhere on the map. You just retired. Where do you want to go? And he said Grand Canyon, and man, was it wonderful. We just we hiked until our legs were about to fall off, and just enjoyed being outside in the most beautiful, vast place I've ever seen in my life.
And it looks like you took some amazing pictures while you were out there.
I did.
Which you're known for, your morning pictures.
Well, it's, he knows me, and I love the way that light plays on things. It's fun to take those pictures, and there's no place better to do that than the Grand Canyon. So it's like every moment the light is different on the colors on those rocks. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I want to start with some budget news. There's a lot of budget news coming from your administration, but we did just learn about this loss of funding for the Emerald Trail.
Yeah.
This was money that was pulled back in the kind of what was called as the Big Beautiful Bill, $147 million that the Emerald Trail was counting on for this expansion. Can you talk a little bit about the impact there and how the city might regroup and recover from that kind of loss? I mean, it was just a year ago we were sort of celebrating this huge.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. The biggest grant that we've ever gotten by far in the city of Jacksonville, and we were so excited that the Biden administration saw the value of what we were trying to provide here with the connection around the city, the economic impact, all of that would bring on. I think ultimately what happened was, and I don't think this was personal. I mean, what they're telling us is that unobligated grants is part of the Neighborhood Access and Equity Grants program. All of them were just summarily dismissed. That really anything that had to do with that had equity or that those words in the title didn't go well. But we are told that given that this administration is saying that its priorities are economic development, that we can reapply under an economic development grant and perhaps get some of that money back. I don't know that we would ever get $147 million again. I hope so, because our Republican lawmakers, Rutherford and Bean, also fought very hard to get this grant. And as you know, we all we all were just very excited about the opportunity we had had to work together. We made such a great case. And so I'm disappointed that the Trump administration so far hasn't seen the value in that, but I do have hope that if we can reapply under an economic development grant, that we can show them why this really is such a good thing for Jacksonville.
Does it seem a little bit, I don't know, kind of like wasted time to have to reapply, just changing the language so that you downplay what would be, inclusive language of like perhaps community equity and sort of change it to economic development?
Well, the interesting thing is we had done that. We had gone back in, and because the grant was still in process, we had gone back in and tried to, make the economic development argument, because that is a very strong argument. Obviously, every grant is written for how you're told you need to write it to win.
Mm-hmm.
And to the Biden administration, the whole diversity, equity, and inclusion piece was a big deal. To this administration, the exact opposite. So it is important for us to now turn our focus to making the economic development argument and see if we can get some of that money back. Either way, we've got obviously the gas tax money that will continue to fund the Emerald Trail. The exciting thing about the grant that we received was that it would have allowed us to finish several years early.
Right.
And that's what's in question now, because I don't know how long it will take us to get, even if we are able to get the grant again. But obviously extraordinarily disappointing for us. We were very grateful to receive it, and I'm really sorry we won't have it, at least for the time being.
Yeah. Taking back money that's sort of been allocated seems like a little bit of a new thing that we're seeing with this administration. And it is, I would guess, especially concerning when you're trying to build budgets around knowns and, expectations and what will be funded.
Well, I think that is one of the hallmarks so far of this administration, and I think quite purposefully so. That they really are trying to sort of rewrite the playbook a little bit of how things are done. And in some ways, I've done some of the same things at the city. I came in and I said, don't tell me, that we've always done it that way and that we have to do everything the way that it's always been done. So I can appreciate disruption. But I think in this case, it's just really hard to get our arms around what we can actually count on and not count on, at least at this point. And I hope as we go along in the process, it becomes a little clearer. We are told they are going to focus very heavily on economic development. So I'm hoping that that's something that it's one of our priorities, hoping that we can have some simpatico there.
Economic development, other headlines. We are talking to Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan, and you're welcome to join our conversation. Give us a call at 904-549-2937 or email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. We've got a call from Sam in Jacksonville Beach. Good morning, Sam. Go ahead.
Hi. First of all, I just wanted to say I'm a huge fan.
Thank you, Sam.
I'm over at the beach area. Now, there's some rumors going around that you were potentially had a driving around drunk on the beach. Is that true?
No, Sam, that's not true. I heard the same rumor that was started when I was in the Grand Canyon, and I got a phone call saying, "Did you get stopped in Jack's Beach last night?" And I said, "Well, that would have been tough because I was in the Grand Canyon." But just so you know, that's not something I would do anyhow. That is, I have a driver. I have a husband who never drinks, so I have a designated driver even when I'm not driving. But no, that's not true, and it's a rumor that I don't know how it even got started. But
I will say that
such is political life.
I will say that Sam had indicated he wanted to ask you if you were going to run again, as opposed to whether that was the case. But at any rate, I guess that answers that question. We have a call from Andrew in Mandarin. Good morning, Andrew. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, Madam Mayor. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
Doing good, thank you. I wanted to ask about your recent interview in the New York Times. It was about 5 days ago, where you said the Trump administration is a little confusing on how they were operating. I just wanted to I know you just talked about the Emerald Trail, wanted to kind of ask how you were going to, about that comment in particular, and additionally how you plan on navigating your relationship with the Trump administration, as well as the state, given the recent veto of around $4 million of local projects in the recent budget. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, that was an interview that I was up at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and they chose 16 of us to ask questions. That was a much longer answer, by the way. They chopped it up a little bit and basically just said, and I think that they used my answer as being sort of representative of what a lot of the mayors were feeling. Our job as mayors, and this is why I love being a mayor so much, is to get things done. Honestly, that's what we do. We try to navigate through the politics. We try not to be political. We try to make sure that we're just getting as much done as we can possibly get done. And I love those conferences because it gives me an opportunity to really learn from all these other mayors, whether they're Democrats, Republicans, or independents. And we all tend to have a very similar mentality. But one of the things that is tough when you're trying to get things done is getting your feet. And I think with the federal government, and I think I really sort of gave a great example of that with the Emerald Trail, and that is whether it's the Emerald Trail, the grants that we were waiting to hear about, whether it is tariffs, where we're still we're not exactly sure where all of that will fall. Those are all things that will impact local decisions. So that's what I meant by that. I didn't mean it as a derogatory as much as I meant it. We're really just still waiting for the dust to settle on where some of these policies are going to go. And so as a mayor, it's very helpful to have that set in stone. Obviously, we have great relationships with our representatives in Congress. We continue to work with them. And we continue to work with our folks that are our lobbyists up in D.C. And I think for the most part, that's going very well. This was a grant, the Emerald Trail was a grant that was in the classification of grants that were all just swept away. That's why I said I don't think it was personal toward us. I think it was simply a change of priority for this administration. So we have to go back and we have to apply in a new way. So I would say we would have to do that no matter what change in administration we had. You got to figure out what the priorities are for whatever administration is there, and then you have to go forward and try to make sure that you can align with those.
And one of the things that you and I were just speaking about before the show began was you've kind of been asking your staff to take a look at how some cuts might be falling on the local level, including when it comes to health care. Can you talk a little bit about what you've asked your staff to come up with and what they're starting to forecast?
Yeah, obviously as somebody who has spent the last 25 years trying to expand access for underserved people for healthcare, it is extraordinarily concerning to me what we just have seen pass in what's being called the big beautiful bill in terms of cuts to Medicaid and the ACA subsidies. We've spent a lot of time in this city trying to expand the number of people who are covered. We expanded it by 34% the first year that I was here, which of course saves us money on the back end in so many ways. I hope people make that connection. When we have more people covered, it costs us less money in emergency rooms and everything else that happens. So I asked the staff, I called Sunil and Lynn and Parvez, who does our data, and I said, can we come up with some local impacts? And what we've crunched so far, and these numbers may change, but it looks like Medicaid, we will be impacted less than 90% of the states because we didn't, only 10 states didn't expand Medicaid. We were one of those states.
So there was money that we didn't take to fund
right.
health coverage.
So it is the states that expanded Medicaid that will be hurt most profoundly by the Medicaid cuts. In Jacksonville, we will have about 6,000 Medicaid enrollees that will probably lose their Medicaid, the profoundly poor. That'll cost us about $38 million in economic impact annually. In terms of the ACA, that will be about 30,000 policies that are lost there. And that'll cost us about $68 million annually. So obviously that is a huge hit, not only to our vulnerable population, but to our local economy. And what we're trying to do now is determine, I'm very grateful that we have created programs like our telehealth program that is, becoming a model for the country. We're going to have to meet with our local hospital officials because obviously they're going to lose a lot of money in reimbursements. There's all sorts of things we'll have to get our arms around locally to make sure that our citizens, especially our most vulnerable citizens, will still be able to get services. But we have the best team in the country, in my mind, working on that. And so I'm very grateful that we have this health program that we have at the city level, and we'll continue to try to do what we can to mitigate those losses. But I'd say if there's anything that's keeping me up at the moment, I'd say that's probably what it is. We've got a lot of vulnerable folks now. Now the interesting thing is most of this doesn't go into effect until 2027, after the midterms are over.
Yeah.
But I think it gives us a little bit of time to grapple with what we can do locally to try to mitigate the damage there.
We've got a call from Nancy in Atlantic Beach. Good morning, Nancy. Go ahead.
Good morning. Madam Mayor, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, but I am very upset about the decisions or the apportionment made by the chair of the city council into the committee duties. And I listened to you talk with such knowledge about all of the things that are happening and how you recall these facts so easily. And I'd like to know how you plan to work with a council that has been set up pretty much to stonewall many ideas, yours and other people's ideas, because of the apportionment of the council people to committees. And as you can tell, I'm really upset. I mean, the chair, I wonder if he went to kindergarten. You just don't do that when you're dealing with a broad spectrum of people who elected you to the positions that you're in. So how do you plan to deal with the situation?
Nancy,
Okay, that's it.
thanks, Nancy. And we should sort of explain what she's talking about in terms of the new leadership and the council assignments. But basically, Kevin Carrico, who's the new city council president, has given a couple of your maybe stauncher supporters on council limited committee involvement, just one committee each for council member Peluso and Matt Carlucci. 2 is the norm, and that's basically kind of what everybody else got. And so the question being, like, the way that those leadership roles are apportioned.
Well, listen, every council president has the autonomy to do whatever they want to do with those committees. I mean, that's part of the job. The fact of the matter is that this council and me have gotten a whole lot done together over the last 2 years. So regardless of what partisanship you may hear in terms of things that are occasionally said, I would say 95% of the priorities that we've had have been moved forward through both of us, because they would have to in order to get funds allocated, right? So I guess I would caution people, look, I think there is a lot of effort, especially, and I've said this. I said this when I vetoed the immigration bill. I don't like political theater. I think it is damaging. I think we have seen what happens when people go overboard with their violence in words that can translate to violence of other kinds. So I'm not saying that I'm a fan of that. What I'm saying is that I think that underneath it all, I have built good relationships with these council folks, most of them anyway. I'm not going to say all of them, but most of them. I'm encouraged so far. I had a great relationship with Randy White, still do. And I'm encouraged so far by my discussions with President Carrico and with Finance Chair Raul Arias. And I think we're going to still continue to move things through. But look, Nancy, here's the bottom line. The city council is supermajority Republican. So no matter
14 of 19
14
members.
of 19. So no matter how you apportion those committees, well, I would love to see them be fairly apportioned. No matter how you apportion them, that's the math. So it's all about building relationships, making the fiscal argument, making the business argument, make the argument for what's best for Jacksonville. And then I think when we've done that, we've been mostly successful. So we'll keep on doing that, and I'll continue to try to avoid the pitfalls of the culture wars that people occasionally try to drag me into. But that is ultimately the goal, is to come up with as much common ground as we can and move the city forward. And that's what we'll keep doing.
You seem to make special time when you were making your announcement about your decision to veto the immigration bill to, call out your relationship with then Council President Randy White,
Yeah.
and say, that you've not agreed on many things, but you've always disagreed in a civil way and been able to work together. And I'm just curious why you wanted to specifically kind of name drop him and talk about that relationship at that setting.
Well, it was his last meeting. That was one thing. That was his very last meeting as president. But also, I would say that Randy White is the gold standard for how I would like to work with council. He never does anything in the media. He never throws lobs. There's never any bombs dropped just for political theater. Randy would come into my office and we would know immediately whether we agreed or disagreed on something. And then we'd say, okay, where can we find the common ground here to move something forward that we can both live with? And that is really, how 90% of our conversations went. Very frank, but also very, very much in the mold of getting things done. And I think that's really, if you put your love for the city of Jacksonville before you put your political partisanship, then we will have no problem. None of us will. And I think ultimately we will all be judged on how much we get done, not on how many political, barbs we can score. But that's me, and I'll continue to work that way. And my hope is that we'll continue to work that way as a body.
Yeah, and I do believe Kevin Kirko, who is going to be on this program in a week or so we'll be able to talk to him about some of these same issues. But he's indicated that he wants to, that he kind of regards previous issues as water under the bridge, that he's eager to move forward in his relationship with you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had great conversations so far. So I think it's interesting when people actually step into a leadership position. And you realize this is my legacy here in front of me. What do I want to accomplish here in the next year? I think that some of those partisan things can drop off because it's incredibly important to continue to move the city forward. And I have every reason to believe that Kevin Carrico loves this city, and so I will work with him on everything we can do to move forward, and on the times when things get political, I'll do my best to just stay out of that.
So budget is coming. Monday, you give your address to the city council. You present your budget. I'm guessing there are plenty of drafts floating around, none of them yet public.
No.
What can you tell us about your priorities and, whether there's going to be any surprises in there for the council, what you're expecting their response to be, and how you think that overlay of politics might, play a role?
Well, look, I think my priorities continue to be mostly the same, and I think what I've tried to do with Council President Carrico, and our incoming finance chair Raul Arias is we've tried to talk over what are our mutual priorities. What is it we both want to accomplish that we can accomplish together? So I think we've had some good conversations so far. I don't think there will be anything that will come as a surprise to the council because my priorities have pretty much stayed the same. I'm going to be focusing on housing, which is the same thing as saying focusing on homelessness. All of it is so interconnected. Infrastructure is big. We're gonna focus even more heavily in this budget on. We heard it in the town halls over and over again. No matter where we went, I'm tired of the potholes. I need my sidewalk fixed. We're going to focus more heavily on making sure we can get more of that done.
And what does that look like? Is that efficiencies? Is that somebody's ability to register a complaint when there's a pothole?
Well, obviously it's all of it, but I'm talking specifically a budget line item. There'll be more money in the budget for those public works projects that can move, in to get more potholes done and more sidewalks done and the things that people are frustrated about in terms of that. Because when we started off, remember, we focused very heavily on increasing maintenance, like the mowing budget, which will continue to be robust. And people really appreciated that. But they said, we need to do a better job of getting to the infrastructure pieces, just the basic, road repairs and sidewalk repairs and things. And we heard that. So we're putting more money in the budget for that. And also, of course, we'll continue to focus on downtown development and small business development. Those are the things that have been, priority. I think obviously as we get closer to these healthcare cuts, we'll have to look and see what we will need to do there. I don't know how it's going to impact UF Health, So we'll have to look at all that, but that's not for this year. We won't have to worry about that in this year's budget.
And in terms of blight, that's something that you also have been prioritizing with a new initiative that you rolled out, this kind of Keep Jacksonville Cute
Yes,
plan.
yes.
But that is
That's another
also
area where we're spending more money. But that's what when I talk about maintenance and infrastructure, that's one of the things. Blight was another thing that at every town hall meeting it came up. And we got to change the culture of our city that way. And a lot of that just has to do with education, Ann. I mean, we got to start with kids, and we've got to educate people. We got to instill some pride, and just not, when you drop something on the ground, it's not just going to disappear. And we've also got to make sure that we're doing a better job with prevention also, and enforcement in terms of people that come and just continually dump on our public streets. We're going to get some better camera equipment, maybe some drones, to make sure that we can actually identify those people and hold them accountable for what they're doing. And then the fun part is we're partnering with the Jumbo Shrimp, which will be a lot of fun, to do the Jack's Litter League. So we're going to have teams. We'll have teams of competition. People love competitions. And they'll go out and they'll compete to see who can clean up their neighborhood the best. We'll participate in some of those too. And then whichever teams do the best will get to throw out the first pitch at one of the shrimp games, and also have a party in the VIP area up there. So that'll be great too. There's all sorts of elements to this, but it's another increased item in the budget. We're putting more money into blight because it's an important piece for creating community pride.
Just a note from Tom on Facebook, who works at the airport. He said he wanted to know if Mayor Deegan is aware that the holographic mayor there is off more than it's on. I actually saw it for the first time myself last night getting back into the airport. My husband and I were sort of joking, like, is it life size or is it a little larger?
Oh, no, it's bigger. It's definitely bigger than me. No question about it. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I'll have to check it out, but I did not know that and have not heard that. But sometimes they have to take it down for maintenance or to change something. So it may be that you've just not caught it at the times that it's been on. But no, it's not. It doesn't rise to the top of my priority list these days.
A new fire chief does, though. That was announced just last week. Percy Golden, he's going to be taking over for longtime chief Keith Powers, who I think you had a pretty good relationship with. Tell
Absolutely.
us about this choice, what it is that appeals to you most about having him lead that department.
Well, look, first of all, let me just say something about Keith. I mean, Keith was an amazing leader for us in the fire department. I was grateful to keep him on for an additional 18 months. He really was very innovative, always tuned into trying to make things better for the city, and so many things were possible because of the way he led that department.
And you just mean an additional 18, like after that he didn't leave when you started?
He didn't leave when I started.
Okay.
Most mayors will come in and appoint somebody new. I came in and I kept him on, and he did a great job. But he decided it was time for him to go. He said, I want to spend more time with family, and gave us a rather quick date that he wanted to go by. And so we started the process and had 17 very qualified candidates. Ended up whittling that down to 5, and did several series of interviews and written questions. And these guys went through the gauntlet over a very compressed period of time and did a great job. Ultimately, Percy Golden was one of those people I've had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with in the EOC. Watched him really do really well under pressure during hurricane season. Watched his relationships with other people. Had a long talk with Chief Ayub about his leadership abilities, and he said, "Gosh, you give the guy something, and he innovates 12 ways from Sunday on how to make it better." But I think the thing that I was most impressed with Percy was he's laser focused on the fact that this is a department that is getting younger and younger. A lot of young people now have come in as recruits, and young people communicate differently than older people do. And he seemed to have a really good
put that
vision.
gently.
But it's true.
Yeah.
And there are different, they want to understand the whys of things. They're not just going to they don't want to just do something because you tell them to do it. They want to know why. They want to know the whys. In a number of other things. So Percy was very focused on making sure that we could bring in those younger people and really create a lot of department pride and cohesiveness, and I thought that was really impressive. But everybody was great. We had a wonderful group to pick from, and really excited to have Percy on board.
I know we're going to let you go. You've got another engagement, but you're going to head to a merchandise shop announcement. What's going on with that?
We're going over to see Rex over at the Beach and Peach. You know, our big orange dinosaur, to kick off our when we kicked off I Dig Jax. So many people saw the logo and the shirts and stuff and said, "Can we get these
with the dinosaur on it?"
With the dinosaur, and so we checked, through the city ordinances, and they said, yeah, you can, as long as you put all the money back into public affairs, so you can spend it on promoting the city. You can have a merch store for people to be able to buy their I
So there's
Dig
going to be
Jax
like
stuff.
little.
Yeah, so it'll be fun. We're also going to have a scavenger hunt where we're going to hide a bunch of little Rexes around, 3D printed Rexes, and people can find them for prizes.
Do they have the bone, or do they not have the bone? All right. Well, Mayor Deegan, good luck with the merch store. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks, Ann.
All right. Up next, how picking up trash provoked an artistic revolution. Welcome back. From the problem of plastic pollution to lost cause mythology, artist and Jacksonville transplant Robert Dewitt Adams doesn't shy from controversial themes in his art, but he also approaches his work with humor and a hint of the absurd. Here to tell us about his new exhibit at Florida Mining Gallery is Robert Adams. Good morning. Thanks for being here.
Hey, good morning. Thank you so much for having me. It's so exciting. This is the sound of my mornings as I drive over the bridge to the gallery every day.
Oh, excellent. So here you are, being the sound of your own morning. It's great to have you. So you are now a Jacksonville resident, but you've been around quite a bit. You grew up sort of in the suburban D.C. area and, moved out west. You're back here now, but your influences and your artistic roots are kind of in a somewhat conservative place. You had a military family, a government family, fairly Catholic upbringing. So can you talk a little bit about how those sort of young influences played into the work that you do today?
Oh, for sure. Thanks. Right. My family kind of transplants to the D.C. area after World War II. So my grandparents' generation. So they felt kind of uprooted and having to make a new home for themselves in the D.C. area. My dad grew up in Tennessee, and my mom's dad in Iowa. And so family was really important to us. We were very tight as a close family. But yeah, a lot of my relatives were service members. My dad, granddad, two uncles, aunt. And then after their military service, they kept serving the country through civil service. And so there's a lot of talk. Politics was kind of a pastime for us. Talking, the day's news. We were always watching the news, and so that influenced me for sure. And kind of conservative. But my dad was also the first in his generation to go to college, and he really valued education and the humanities as well. He went to University of Chicago, got an anthropology degree. And he would take us to the Smithsonian every weekend, and so we were seeing dinosaurs and rockets and art, and the art really fascinated me. I was like, what that? Seeing these Rauschenberg constructions or the Washington Color School, the beautiful Kenneth Nolan colors were fascinating, and I was thinking, why did folk artists like the James Hampton, that tinfoil altarpiece that he spent most of his life working on. I thought, wow, there's so many interesting ways that life can go.
Hampton is an interesting. I mean, he's outsider artist, as you say, folk artist sometimes called, but that's often people who are driven to create art, sometimes with just things that exist around them, not necessarily any formal training. A lot of times, kind of a spiritual motivation, even, or kind of a religious calling. And his work is no exception. I mean, he kind of had this throne for the second coming of Christ, but it was built out of things like, found tinfoil and light bulbs. And it's just an extraordinary piece. Do you find that, I mean, you think along what is it about outsider art that inspires you? What is it that you find relevant to your own artistic tendencies?
Right. In my experience of traveling around and thinking about life, and I just I see that life and hope is everywhere, and beauty. And so I don't see that someone needs to buy fancy art supplies to create something amazing and to make a statement. Recently I was doing some research, and there's a Swiss Environmental Institute that a couple years ago had a study that said that most of the plastic pollution in the world's waters is from acrylic paints. And that kind of blew my mind. I was thinking for a while, like, they say it's easy cleanup. You just wash it in the sink, bye-bye, but that doesn't get filtered out from water systems. And now it's mostly industrial uses, housing and boats and cars and everything else. But it just keeps it in my mind that I should use what I have available and not necessarily have to create more things.
And for people who are watching our live stream, we are showing some images of your work, and you do use a lot of found objects, including, kind of some things that I guess might otherwise constitute a form of pollution, plastics and things like that. And I guess you kind of came to that doing some actual cleanups of waterways. Is that right?
Right. I studied environmental science and biology as an undergraduate and in American U in DC. And for a summer job, I was on the Conservation Corps, cleaning up trash out of the Potomac and Anacostia River tributaries. And some of these things were really interesting looking, the way they've been weathered and just the kind of junk food wrappers that I just didn't usually buy. And it reminded me of what I'd seen at the Smithsonian with pop artists. And so I started to work with those materials to make paintings or assemblages, sculptures.
And do you have a sense of, kind of repurposing things that are otherwise bound for the trash, or are you trying to just create new art out of unusual substances?
Right. I don't really think that I'm not going to make any dent in the world's recycling trash problems with my art, but it's more of a symbol, more of an idea that people can make people think about it. My wife might think I collect a bit too much of our recycling. One of my recent projects is about the plastic pollution. I take the plastic recycling and I clean it and stuff it inside of discarded cushions from couches, and call them discomfort cushions, because the plastic is kind of something that was meant to bring comfort and ease to our modern lives, but really it's getting into our bodies and environments in ways that we didn't expect. And then I kind of add a Civil War twist to it, just thinking intuitively. As I ended up with a lot of blue and gray cushions, I thought, there's a lot of continuing resonance of the Civil War.
And you do explore that in this carpetbagger series that you created. And they're actually kind of, manufactured carpet bags, I guess, made out of pieces of I don't know, textiles, some of them possibly carpet. What does that mean to you, that series? Why did you want to create those bags?
Right. I do a lot of musing. I mean, I love history. Like I said, my family was, especially with their military background, was always talking, about, our ancestors and how proud we should be of them and what they fought for. And so I was, my dad, especially being from Tennessee, talked about the Civil War a lot. And so I'm a total military history nerd. And the carpet bags, when moving down here to the deep south, I'm thinking about the mythology, like, oh, the Northerners during Reconstruction coming down and taking over and ruin everything for the Southern culture. And from my perspective, that doesn't seem quite the case. I mean, these were people who were trying to, establish civil rights and democracy. And so in my carpet bags, I make them from carpets that I find and clean and try out different patterns. I send messages between the North and South of hope, like Emancipation Proclamation and 14th Amendment and things like that.
And one of the bags actually has a couple of tiki torches worked into it. So I'm guessing that's a reference to the Unite the Right rally
Yeah,
a few years back.
Yeah, I call that one carpet bag for Charlottesville. Yeah, I'm kind of a scavenger. I like hunting for things. I grew up. My grandparents had a cabin on the Chesapeake, and we would hunt for shark's teeth, which was on the bay, which was one of the exciting things about coming to Jacksonville. Like, oh, you've got shark's teeth on the beach here too, around Florida. But also, when Dad would take us to Civil War battlefields, I would always think like, oh, maybe I'm going to find a button or a mini ball or a belt buckle or something. So.
Just in terms of incorporating things that you find, you mean?
Right.
Well, let me ask you a question because I kind of have to get to this. It's fascinating to me. You actually attended school with Jeff Kinney, who went on to write the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series. And you have a little bit of a story about that, your own experience with him.
Right. I was in high school with Jeff. We went on a school trip to Europe together. And some shenanigans ensued, as will happen with teenagers on their first international trip. And so he would tease me after that for years. But I don't want to go into what exactly it was about. But I think I deserved it, and it's kind of fun to I followed his cartooning when he was at University of Maryland, and he did the Ig Doof series before Wimpy Kid.
And you did some early cartooning at school too. I think you kind of started a zine when you were still in high school.
I did. It was school based, just Xeroxing students and teachers and putting them in funny positions and making political statements. I think, the DC punk scene was really eye opening to me, and its connection with history too. That I used to go to shows at the DC Space downtown. And right above that was Clara Barton, the Civil War nurse's office. And so there always would seem like the DC was kind of haunted. There was like ghosts and history.
And a big punk scene there with Fugazi and other bands of that ilk.
Definitely.
So just briefly, if we can, I want to talk a little bit about the Florida Mining Gallery because your exhibit is there, but you're also a gallery director. What is upcoming there that people should know about or check out?
Right. Well, right now we have a group show. There's work by me. There's a number of other artists, great local and regional artists. Amir Kabaslia, he's originally from Bosnia, but ended up here after the Civil War in Bosnia. And we have his work. Hiromi Munihan, listeners probably know her. She had an atrium installation at MoCA. She has a solo show at the Frost Museum in Miami right now, which is amazing. She was in the Orlando Florida Prize show, so she's a real local treasure. Dustin Harewood and Mark Cregan, they're professors at FSCJ. We have work by them. It's Jasmine Best. She's an Athens artist.
And these are all, I mean, you kind of focus on, mid-career artists, people from the South, but all, kind of emerging, but also, incredibly talented folks.
That's right. When I moved to Jacksonville, I'd never heard of it before, and I was like, we moved here for my wife's job, and I thought, Jackson, honey, why? What is there? But now, being here, it's so rich, and I think it's more. I'm so excited to work with Florida Mining and promote our regional creativity and history and art and music. There's so much here, and right.
Well, it's a cool gallery. It's a great opportunity to get some exposure to some new artists if you haven't been. But Robert Dewitt Adams, it's great to talk to you. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, the artist dubbed St. Augustine's busiest entertainer.
Florida Theater presents Dave Koz and Friends, Summer Horns 2025. Performing alongside the jazz saxophonist will be Marcus Anderson, Jeff Bradshaw, Leo P., Evan Taylor, and Marcel Anderson. Saturday, July 19th at 8 p.m. Information at floridatheater.com. Museum of Science and History's new exhibition, Mosh Archives, the story of us and you, steps you into a treasure trove of memories, now through August 31st. Tickets and information at themosh.org.
This is it, the greatest concert film ever made. Join us Wednesday, August 20th at WJCT Studios for The Last Waltz, Martin Scorsese's legendary farewell to the band featuring Dylan, Clapton, Joni Mitchell, Van Morrison, and more. Doors open at 6:30, film rolls at 7. We've got a cash bar, popcorn, and nothing but good vibes. Grab your tickets now at WJCT.org/film. One night, one stage. Don't miss The Last Waltz.
The band's final concert.
The world takes you outside your borders and connects you with the most important events happening all across this big blue marble.
We introduce you to memorable people whose stories will stay with you for a lifetime. I'm Marco Werman.
And I'm Carolyn Beeler, global news and inspiring voices that will keep you on top of the world.
Listen each weekday.
This afternoon at 3, here on WJCT News 89.9.
As global temperatures rise and heat waves grow deadlier, one simple, ancient resource can help us cool down: shade. We explore how cities are rethinking streets, sidewalks, and parks to prioritize shade, plus what's keeping some communities so much shadier than others. Design, equity, and survival in a hotter world. That's next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, it's a sound blending the influences of France, Israel, and Argentina, served with a touch of romance and rebellion. Here to tell us about it is the woman known as St. Augustine's busiest entertainer, ZaZa Flamenca. Good morning, ZaZa.
Good morning.
It's wonderful to have you here. So this show that you're putting together right now is Chansons et Tango. It's songs and tango, and you're essentially putting together kind of popular French music along with the work of your guitarist, Gabriel Hermida, who's from Argentina.
Yeah, Gabriel Hermida. He's from Argentina originally. He lives in New York, and I used to play with him. I used to play with him a lot, all over. We did millions of cruise ships and casinos and places and venues in New York. And I moved to St. Augustine a few years ago. And this show is very special because it's just before July 14th, which is Bastille Day, the start of the French Revolution. And it's also Nueve de Julio, which is the 9th of July. Tomorrow is the Independence Day of Argentina, when they became independence from Spain. So we wanted to do a show about independence and like a very typical French chanson like Edith Piaf and Charles Aznavour and Jacques Brel, and tango like Carlos Gardel or Astor Piazzolla, celebrating all this art and independence.
And so those are performed independently of themselves, though. Is that right? I mean, you're doing the French songs, you're doing them, in the classical style, as opposed to mixing them with the sounds of the guitar that he's bringing.
Yeah, we do. No, he's playing guitar. I play guitar too.
Okay.
So we play together, and some songs I just sing and play, and he's a genius on the guitar. So I'm like, and some other songs are just gonna be tango instrumentals. And it's very important for me that he's coming, because in St. Augustine I didn't find anybody that can play tango, because Argentinian people are very like specific about their music and their food and their everything. So it has to be an Argentinian. Yeah, if you're not Argentinian, you cannot play tango. That's
and you have a very international kind of set of influences. You speak 3 languages, but you sing in 10 languages. And
I speak 5.
You speak 5 languages.
I speak 5.
And
I sing in 10. Yes. I'm working on learning more languages.
And is it necessary to kind of know the language and be able to sing in a language in order to perform just the wide range of styles that you do?
Well, for example, I sing lots of Russian music because I love it. I started to learn Russian, but when I didn't know Russian, I do learn the meaning of the lyrics, because every song is like a story, like a little movie, the beginning, a middle, and an end. So and it's like, you need to know the story behind the song, because every time you sing it, you tell a story. Otherwise, it's boring for
Right.
everybody, right? So I do learn the meaning of the song, and then the sounds is like music. If it's a language that I don't speak, but I hear the sound of the words, so it's like a music thing, and that's how I learn the lyrics.
And so you, do a variety of styles. Do you have kind of a favorite performance space in St. Augustine? Do you have a favorite performance style, or do you really just kind of like to be as flexible and varied as possible?
I play every Sunday brunch at Casa Monica, the hotel, and almost every Saturday at the Hilton on the Bayfront, and I really like those places because it fits my music. It's very international and very elegant and high-end. But I have to say that more and more I want to do more concerts where people come for the music and not for the food or the drinks and meeting their friends. And I used to be an actress. I have an acting background, so when I'm on stage, I feel very comfortable and I tell stories. It's not just music. I interact with the audience and I tell them the story about the song or the artist. And it's kind of a fun thing to all together. We're here to have a good time and learn culturally about the music and the art. And I love this. It's just
And you, for many years lived in New York. You just sort of a recent arrival in St. Augustine, just a couple of years now. And so, what brought you here, and what is it that keeps you here?
COVID, of course,
Oh.
because New York shut down
Mhm.
and I had no more work. So my friend lives around in Ormond Beach, and I came with her for a month. Never heard of St. Augustine in my life before. And her neighbor said, "You're a live musician, so you should check out this town because there is music everywhere." So I just went. And I fell in love instantly. The music, the setup, it looks like Europe, it looks like Spain. And I was like, oh, and I play flamenco and Gypsy Kings and Latin music. This is perfect. So I just went around. In New York, I was a little famous. But in St. Augustine, nobody knew me. But I went bar by bar, restaurant by restaurant, said, hey, I'm playing music. I have my guitar. And one place gave me a chance. And since then, it became amazing. And I love it. I love the people. I love the weather. I love the quality of life. I just bought a condo, which I
Okay.
never bought anything in my life. That's how much I love St. Augustine.
So you're digging in some roots. So this event, it's called Chansons et Tango. It's Sunday, July 13th at 7 p.m. and it's at the Sons of Israel Synagogue in St. Augustine. But you have a website people can get information?
Yes. It's my website. It's ZaZa Flamenca. .com, and if you go to the website you can buy tickets for the show. It's in the oldest synagogue in Florida. It's called the Sons of Israel. It's a very historical building and it looks like a little theater because they have 2 floors, like a balcony, and the acoustic is amazing. I already played there a few times, and it's gonna be just we're gonna have empanadas that the Argentinian guitar genius is gonna cook.
Nice.
He's like, he's
Excellent.
gonna do the
A man of many skills.
Yes.
All right. Well, ZaZa Flamenca, it's wonderful to meet you. Thanks so much for coming up and talking to us today.
Thank you so much.
All right. And thank you for listening. That's our program. If you have feedback or suggestions, you can send either to First Coast Connect at WJCT.org. If you missed anything, you can catch our rebroadcast at 8 o'clock tonight.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com.
Listen to Anthology on 89.9 HD3 and let the music unlock your memories. All your favorite music from the 60s, 70s, and 80s are always on 89.9 HD3 Anthology.